And I'm going to pull up on the screen today's daily word and ask if somebody would be willing to read that for us. Any volunteers to read?
I'll read it.
Great, thank you.
Compassion. I clothe myself in thoughts of compassion. Sunday, May 4th, 2025. I may struggle to feel compassionate, especially when I feel angry. If another's hurtful words or hostile actions seem cruel or unjust, I may feel tempted to respond in kind. However, striking back does not end conflicts or heal relationships. Instead, as I turn within and feel the Christ mind dissolve my anger, I feel calm. At those breakthrough moments, I remember anger doesn't satisfy anyone or solve problems. Regardless of how justified I may feel expressing my upset, it is within my power to choose compassion instead. I will not reciprocate others' hostility. I will instead look beyond their anger to see their struggles. I need not approve their choices to see them as children of God today and every day. Clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Colossians 3:12.
Thanks, Gail.
Yep, thanks, Gail. Say that 3 times fast. I clothe myself in thoughts of compassion. I clothe myself in thoughts of compassion. Let's affirm that together. I clothe myself in thoughts of compassion. It's a beautiful and powerful word for today. And then we're going to move to our continued study of prosperity. We've been spending some time, as we may all recall, or if you haven't been here for a while, in the idea of substance. Last week we finished up with consciousness and substance. How may one become conscious of substance? And we're moving today to affirming substance. And before we start today's lesson, is there anything left over from last week anybody would like to raise, or anything that occurred to us over the course of the last week worth sharing? Or did we just, after we finished the lesson, we just forgot about it till today?
No.
Okay. Who would be willing to read the affirming substance section? Let's see. There's 3 paragraphs here. So let's start by reading the first paragraph, number 12. It's a long one, and then we'll see if there's any thoughts on that. Then I'll ask someone to read 13 and 14. So
I'll read number.
Okay, I can read 12.
Go ahead,
okay.
Janet.
Thank you.
Oh, Della, do you want to do it?
Nope, go ahead.
Della
Okay.
can do 13 and 14. How about that?
Okay, we're all lined up. The heading is Affirming Substance. Give 3 affirmations of your own for the realization of divine substance. 12. One should not be kept from acknowledging substance because he is not at first conscious of it. He should affirm its presence because he has the understanding that it is. And then there's note 1. I guess we do the notes at the end, right?
Correct.
Okay. God did not create the universe out of nothing, but out of his very own spirit substance. Man cannot make something out of nothing. The clearer his understanding of substance, out of which he makes things, the better he will be able to bring forth whatever good he desires. Then he will not be deceived by the thought that things are the source of his good. The spiritual substance from which comes all visible wealth is never depleted. It is right with you all the time and responds to your faith in it and your demands upon it. It is not affected by our ignorant talk of hard times, though we are affected because our thoughts and words govern our demonstration. The unfailing resource is always ready to give. It has no choice. It must give, for that is its nature. Pour your living words of faith into the omnipresent substance, and you will be prospered. Turn the great energy of your thinking upon plenty ideas, and you will have plenty, regardless of what men about you are saying or doing. Charles Fillmore, Prosperity, 13. And note 1. 1 tells us the is in italics. Note that the text does not say substance exists. That would imply impermanence. Emily Cady explains the pervasiveness of divinity in 2 sentences, each 2 words long. God is, man exists. And that's Truth Unity Introduction to Lessons in Truth. John.
Thanks, Janet. As often happens as we read these paragraphs, there's a lot in here.
Yeah, no kidding.
What do we think? Any thoughts, responses?
I think it's very practical in that last week, Claudia talked about finding a parking space or thinking about something and having great ideas come to you in their good time.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I think it's a very wonderful thing to aspire to always think plenty thoughts and to always think that everything is under control and it's good and it's happening, and not start slipping. I slip into what if. I very quickly can go to what if. And only these months trying to follow the Fillmore faith have I realized how depleting that is, and how it is so almost counterintuitive, because I do have a lot of faith, and why I don't believe that there's plenty and everything will work out, not quite sure, but I do slip. But now I feel myself slipping, and I know I need to step back and shake it off and then be positive.
Cool. Thank you.
For me, if I think about the universe, which is really hard to think about because it's everything, and they talk about the Big Bang Theory, I've always had trouble with that because, all right, so what was before the Big Bang? Well, this talks about that. And I've always known that it is. It's really hard to comprehend because our minds are small and the idea is very big. But that has helped me when I put it in terms of astronomy and how people have tried to explain the universe, and how that is, even though it's magnificent and outstanding and awe-inspiring, and the pictures from the telescopes out in space are just mind-blowing. There's more. There's more and more. There's more and more and more and more and more. It is. It just is. And that's hard to comprehend, but easier than thinking about that there was something before when they don't talk about something before.
Yeah, beautiful. Leo, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. What I like about this part is that it made me realize that whatever options I look at when something happens in the external, there is more, and there is plenty more. And it started to make me wonder, like, let something happen that I cannot envision yet. So there is more faith and more hope, but it's turning into faith because that substance thing is something that is beyond my comprehension. But it happens, and I'm sure about that. So there are moments in my life that I now just like bang my head and say, let substance happen, Leo. Give it up. Don't reason it. Okay, thank you.
Well said. Well, and that's in alignment with what Martha just said. And it goes to this notion that that Fillmore's quoted saying here, the spiritual substance from which all visible wealth comes is never depleted. So the idea is that we live, move, breathe, and have our being in infinite supply. So it's interesting. You even, both of you used the term more, and yet the term more is not accurate because there just is. There can't be anything more than is. The more is for our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Our limited consciousness automatically implies that there's something outside of my limits. And I love what you said, Leo. It says, let go and let substance. Anything else before we move on to, there might be more wisdom for us about this topic. Della, would you pick up 13 and 14 for us?
13. Substance never fails. It is as eternal as God is eternal and is always ready for man's use. It is the, quote, inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that fadeth not away. It means something to inherit from God, and happy are they who can say with understanding, all things whatsoever the Father hath are mine. 14. It was out of substance that Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes. He understood it as all potential, everywhere present, and intelligent and instantly responsive. He had faith in it, and he showed by his example that it can be brought forth into manifestation by prayer and thanksgiving. And for the notes, substance can be converted, transmuted, and changed in a million ways, but it can never be destroyed. 3, the loaves represent substance, and the fishes are ideas of increase.
Thank you. What do we think about these two paragraphs?
Well, I don't understand how footnote 3 relates to paragraph 14, which I understood that paragraph 14, that the loaves and fishes became manifest. They were there. So is footnote 13 saying that it was all that the story is metaphorical, or is it saying that in addition to manifestation in reality, in our reality, it's metaphorical? I mean, I don't understand the footnote.
Yeah, I just think I think Mark is teasing us there with like if you want to follow, if you want to dig deeper into the story of loaves and fishes, this is from Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. This is just what the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary says these things represent in a metaphysical interpretation.
So that's it's an additional interpretation.
Yeah, I just think it's just yeah, it's just sort of like it's like extra icing on the cake. But I don't know that it's essential to what we're reading here.
Yeah, I agree.
I have an idea about that.
Go for it.
And it is if we are discussing these things and you put in a loaf and a fish, and we are all listening, and then we generate our own loaves and our own fish. So we are increasing in wealth, sharing, let's say, the good news.
Okay. Thank you.
I also like the phrase teach a man to fish as a way of increasing his mind capacity for this topic.
As opposed to giving out fish. Yeah.
It occurs to me that in 12, where it says, the clearer his understanding of substance out of which he makes things, the better he will be able to bring forth whatever good he desires. And over in 14, it was out of substance that Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes. The word recognize comes to me as all possibility is in the substance. And the better we understand that, the more capable we are of manifesting whatever the need is from the substance.
Yeah, right. Good point. Also, you made me think, Gail, about when we read the heading here. I was looking at this word, realization of divine substance, and I keep thinking of that word. I think of when Emily Cady uses it in Lessons in Truth, and she talks about our work is to realize spirit. That realization means to make manifest. And that's in alignment, I think, with what you just observed. So substance is there for us to make manifest that which we desire in the moment. And it's always there. And as it says in 13, it never fails. It's eternal as God is eternal and is always ready for our use. I think this goes back to what Leo, you said about our work is to wake up whenever we forget that substance is eternally available right there in the moment and turn our eyes to it. And again, I always like to quote the golden key, Emmett Fox, just move our focus from the condition and put it on God, which is another way of saying move our focus to substance. All right, shall we move on to the next section here?
Can I ask one question that
Only one.
I don't know how to say it exactly. When Jesus worked with the people that were the disciples, and they were always in awe of all that he was doing and able to do. And Jesus was always telling them, you'll do this and more. And then we fast forward, and the Holy Spirit comes down on them, the apostles. And now they're out there and they do start doing some of these really big things, big miracles. And was that something that happened to them from the inside out? Or were they sort of planted with something at the time from the Holy Spirit? How do you go from not being able to do a miracle to doing one in a span of, I guess it was weeks? It has always confused me. Is that connected to what we're talking about now? What were they bringing up or out the disciples that they didn't have when Jesus was with them?
I think Leo's got an answer.
Oh, good.
Oh, I give you an example from my own experience.
Okay.
I think I was about 40 and I wanted to learn skiing. And I went to the Pyrenees and in a small village, and I found a good teacher. And it was a group of 6. And he just said, follow us, follow me. Nothing teaching, nothing, just follow. Well, that day went well. Next morning, I went on the piste myself. I could do nothing. Nothing. But it taught me that the teacher gave me that just extra little bit that made it happen. And that I had to engage something in myself to make this happen on my own. Does that help you?
What did you engage? What happened inside your head that engaged you to understand that and just do it?
Well, I willed it. I wanted to do that. And the same happens when I have a problem. There's people that oppose me, and they should oppose me because they stop me from doing things and find out things. And then I can get in the conflict idea, or I can come to the area where I solve things. And the moment that I make that decision not to, how you say that in English, to increase the conflict, but get it to a situation where things can be solved, that is where my will comes in. I will that it is getting solved. It didn't mean that it solves immediately. Sometimes it takes a few days. Last time it took me 12 hours. I was amazed.
But
It
on that
happened.
day that you were out alone trying to ski, because you knew you had done it the day before, how long did it take you before you pushed off and actually did it? Did you do it that same day?
A week. More than
About
a
a
week.
week. You tried
Yes.
every day. You tried every day?
Well, first of all, I saw what my problem was, and I acknowledged the experience of the teacher, because you should know at that time the snow conditions were, I say that, I don't know how you call that.
Subpar.
Inferior. Subpar, yes.
Not
What
good.
these do, they have these, they didn't have mobiles at that time, but intercoms, and they talk to each other to the condition of the ice on the mountains, because there was no snow, there was ice. So when the sun rose, it could soften the ice in a way that it was skiable. I don't know how to say it in English. And I don't have that access, but I could see that was one of my problems. And that was the first thing I had to realize, that there is knowledge in that teacher that I don't have access to. But on the other hand, the things that I do have access to, that I exercise.
That is very helpful. That's very helpful. I understand what you said. And I like it. Thank you.
You know, this is Cynthia. It just occurred to me through that discussion. I don't know if this is superfluous to what you said, but that you have to have the desire. And it's more than just wanting. It's like an internal desire to do it. And then comes maybe your belief or your faith that you're able to do it, because you've had faith in the teacher that there's the possibility. I don't know if I'm saying that exactly right, but you have to have the desire. You can think about something, but that's more like a mental, but the desire to, from where I come from is like it's an internal action that comes about, and that you really have a desire and a belief that you can do it. To me, that's where the manifestation comes into your internal beingness. I don't know, that really helped me when you were talking about that.
Yeah.
Well, that helps me a lot also, because what I'm up against here, practical story, is that I'm booked for a vacation on Cape Cod to go by myself, be by myself, and I have to drive there. I have not driven on the highway in 8 years. And when I booked the trip in the winter, I said, by the time it gets to the beginning of June, you will be able to drive this car on the highway and you will get there. And now it's kind of the middle of May, or not yet middle, but May. And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe you should cancel. Maybe you're not, you think you can do it. You've been practicing on side streets. You go one exit on the highway. You can do this. That's what I say to myself. And then some other part of myself says, how do you know? You could have a terrible crash and kill 10 people. And so I really don't want to give up on this because I really want to do it. But I also clearly have a great fear about driving on the highway. So I'm going to figure out how I can relate that to Leo's skiing story, because everybody tells me I'm an excellent driver, and of course I can do it. I just don't think I can, and because I haven't done it for so long. So I'm going to ponder. This
Janet,
helps.
Janet, don't worry. First of all, when I start traveling, I'm 74 now. I'm not the oldest, but I'm not the youngest in this company, I think. I always visualize myself in a tunnel, and the tunnel is in light, and I'm fully protected, and I imagine that I am already on my destination, drinking the coffee with the people that I'm about to meet, and I can smell that coffee. And everything else is blank. I blank it out. Thus, the other thinking comes up. It used to. Something very funny happened, but it was very long time ago. I think I was 10, and my elder sister had a friend, and he went about delivering bread. And on one of the small ways, he had an accident, and a little girl died. And I wasn't supposed to hear all of this, but my family told him not to worry. Anyone can happen, and that can happen to anyone. And I was 10, and I said, it will never happen to me, ever. What happened? Ever since that time, little sneaky voices come up and they tell me, yeah, but what if this, and what of that, and what of this, and what of that? And you know how I got them stopping? I said, if anything of that happens, I'd rather kill myself than kill anyone else. And the voices stopped completely, because they cannot argue about that. You understand? This is my statement. I vow that. So if that moment would come, I would find a way to make sure that I would not damage someone else.
That's an incredible statement, Leo.
I do that. Mm-hmm. Last month, no, 2 months ago, I took cannabis, marijuana, first time in my life, and was an experienced connoisseur, yeah? And I had an amazing evening. It's still working on me, but I vowed one thing. Whatever happened to me there, because there was a disclosure of truths and lesser truths, let me put it that way. Whatever happened to me here, I want to come to the same situation without using any stimulant. 2 weeks later, I bought some of the stuff and I used it. I'm not smoking, I eat it. And I got a dream. And in the dream, I was pointed to something Ed Robel wrote. I didn't finish that story that night before going to sleep. But the story of Ed Robel pointed to a story of Mr. Cornell. And he talks about his experience with Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. But he said there, you will never have to worry if you have a clear statement about this, that anything like this will happen again. I was assured cannabis will never put me in that condition anymore, any time more. And it didn't. Cannabis have no effect to me anymore. Because I vowed that. I made that decision. And apparently my vow counts for something in me. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that goes to Cynthia's point about desire or will, right? What I heard you say, Leo, is you didn't want to have that effect, so that's where you started.
Well, I desire to know. I desire to know the truth,
right?
And I could that man enabled something to me what showed me the danger of cannabis, but I countered that. And I countered it with See Me Beautiful song. That's how I countered it. And instead of all kinds of illusionary things, something strange and beautiful happened. And I said, I will come to this same thing again without the use of stimuli. That is my determination. So I still desire, but I'm not going to the path of stimuli.
And to go back to Janet's original question, the power to do all of that is inherent in every human being because we are children of God. So just like the apostles, or whether it's the apostles or it's Janet driving to Cape Cod, or it's Leo making a new friendship with cannabis, all things are possible through substance. And substance can be used for wicked and evil activities. You want to create mayhem, you want to create chaos, you want to create murder. Substance is available to help you do that. Because substance is a universal power to create.
Is it creation or manifestation of what's already there? Or is that the same?
Good question. I hear it. When I use the word manifestation or creation in the three-dimensional world, I mean bringing forth out of an idea something specific.
Okay.
So in our work, everything starts as an idea in God's mind to become manifest in three-dimensional reality. So the manifestation can be safely arriving at Cape Cod, but the idea starts, is like Leo said, is visualizing, I'm going to Cape Cod and I'm going to Cape Cod safely.
Okay.
And then the manifestation is the actual driving on the freeway and getting to Cape Cod.
Right. Okay.
Leo's got the missing piece, though, that says, and if anything happens, please let it just happen to me, or it will just happen to me. I'm not going to take out, 10 families if my car goes out of control. If I believe that it's only going to happen to me, and I'm not afraid of something happening to me, I'm afraid of hurting somebody else. So I'm putting all these pieces together, and I thank you all so much.
Well, and
I still have weeks.
Consider the possibility that unlike the way you just phrased that, you can actually visualize getting there without anybody being hurt, including you.
Yep, there's that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. This this discussion reminds me of what I understand, because I am not an athlete, and so I haven't had this experience of what I understand from listening to and reading about, athletes visualizing ahead of time and doing all of this preparation that is not, lifting weights or that sort of thing, but it's all in the head and the heart and the internal, and visualizing themselves leaping over things. You understand? I'm sure you've read these kinds of things too. This is what it reminds me of.
Mhm.
And they do it. They really do this. Their visualizations, if they are the kind of level that I'm remembering,
Yeah.
they make it manifest. They make their vision manifest. We just need to be athletes about our everyday life.
Well, the irony is that, many athletes are actually trained to do what you just said,
Mhm.
but without necessarily perhaps understanding that the capacity to manifest the outcome that they're visualizing is a universal power, and it's not just for athletic competition.
Right. And that's what makes it even more powerful. People who don't really get this, haven't had what we're doing, can still do it.
Yep.
They can still do it, which just tells me how even more powerful all this is
Yeah.
than not.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me, this goes back to something Martha was saying. You were saying, Martha, about the Big Bang. There's a science to this. The human brain actually is always mapping out the future in our subconscious imagination. There are studies that demonstrate that when we walk, the brain has created the step before the legs make it. That we're actually visualizing the motion, that's an automatic, that's just the way we're created. Our brains map out the step, and then the body takes the step. And it's all done subconsciously. We're not aware of it, or we'd probably trip over our legs. But so that
Well, now you just shed a light on what happened to me 20 years ago, which I've never understood. But I had a ruptured brain aneurysm. I was in the hospital a long time. Then I get sent home, and everybody's telling me how this has to happen with physical therapy and this and this and this. And I said, no, no, I know what I want to do. And I had a plan, which involved the park across the street and the benches along the path in the park, and that I would go the first day and stand up and walk with my hands on first bench. And then I could see myself gradually being able to go from bench to bench, and that I would someday be able to walk in normal world. And nobody liked it. Nobody wanted to participate because they thought it was crazy. But I knew, and I could never tell them how I knew or why I knew. I just said, I just know. And that's how I got better. And then I stopped taking all the medicine that they were throwing at me. And I said, this is going to make it worse. So I had that inner knowing without knowing that I was what you just said. You don't even need to know the lingo of Fillmore faith or unity to be doing something, just from my connection to my higher power and my connection to that inner voice telling me this is going to go bad if you start listening to all these medical people. And it went my way. And I now understand that. This has been a good day for me. I really, I've never understood it till this minute. So thank you.
cool, cool. Yes, this again. I think, Janet, this goes to your very good question about discipleship and about transmission, and then Leo's story about his own experience. That again, I think what we're being asked to understand here in this lesson is, because substance is everywhere present, infinite, unchangeable, unmovable, always there, that we are always manifesting through the use of substance, whether we're aware of it or not. And the power here is to become aware, because when we're aware, then we can intentionally create the life we want to be living. And we can deal with obstacles and challenges as they arise in a completely different way. Rather than being victims of them, we can become co-creators or co-manifestors of something else, which is what you did when you said, I'm going to visualize recovering my ability to walk through this particular method. Once you decided that, the only thing left to do was to do the manifestation. And so
Wow.
it was already so.
Wow.
So work that, Janet. Visualize you're driving, visualize the whole thing, visualize it, just kind of get into it and take it on.
Yeah. How many of us have been in prosperity courses? Like at Christ Unity, we used to do the 4T course, where you're taught to do treasure mapping. Treasure mapping is just visualization of an outcome that hasn't happened yet.
Say that again.
I said
Treasure mapping is what?
treasure mapping is just visualization of an outcome that hasn't happened yet. But it's the beginning to generate the idea. Again, the unity trinity is mind, idea, manifestation. So everything we say, everything starts as an idea in divine mind, which then has the power through the universality and infinitude of substance to create it as a manifestation in the three-dimensional world. And it's always happening. It's just not happening consciously. So see what it says here. Remember at the very first sentence here in sentence 12 or paragraph 12, one should not be kept from acknowledging substance because he is not at first conscious of it. He should affirm its presence because he has the understanding that it is. So even if we're not aware of its working, we can intellectually understand that it is. And that's one access to intentionally working with substance. Leo.
Hold on. Something what happened to me years ago. I was about 40. There was one number that popped in my mind all the time, 50,000. 50,000. And then one day I made out a bill for my customer and it matched 50,000. And I remembered having that number in my mind.
I bet you all of us, we stopped and reviewed our lives, could come up with examples like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on this or anything else on Janet's question? You can move on. Janet, you good with what we've been talking about?
I am. I have to ponder, but I get it. I get what you're saying, and I'm really getting what Leo said about following the teacher and moving his body and doing everything, and he was able to do it. And then the next day he didn't. And that has been, I've seen this in myself over and over in different things that I think, oh, I've got this. And then I didn't. And I didn't have this missing piece, though, that it's there, and I just have to step out. And
Janet, do you know what treasure mapping is?
no, it's the first time I heard you say it.
It's one version of it is to cut out photographs of magazines and gather things visual that you then cut out and you glue onto a board so that it's both the process of gathering these things and thinking about what you want and then combining them into a group of things that manifest what you have in mind. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. And in your case, it would be interesting to do like a map of the route you're going to go on and things you'll see along the way, and have all that be part of your visualization of your driving trip.
Okay, here's a question. Just as we're sitting here talking about this, and I'm taking up too much time, I'm sorry. I was thinking, well, you should try next week. You should just do it. Do it with the car empty, not packed. Just do it. And spend 5 hours, go and come back, and then it will be done for the first time. That this buildup of getting all this stuff loaded in the car and paying all this money and doing all this stuff is somehow, I think, is clogging up the free flow of saying, you can do this. Should I try? Or is that tempting substance?
Well, and even if you only went halfway or some distance.
I got to
the
get
whole
over
point
that
would be-
bridge. It's the bridge that I'm terrified of, driving over the bridge from the land onto the Cape Cod. And so I'll think about it this week. I'll ask you all next week, and then maybe I'll do it.
How about taking somebody with you on this practice one?
No, because I don't want to kill another person. If I'm
Also,
gone, I want to do it alone.
that's also the challenge, Janet, to do it alone, but because it is a dialogue within yourself that you have to silence. Yeah, and if you have someone else with you, you'll do it for the other person, and you should do it for yourself.
Right.
But I would offer a different perspective on dealing with the voices. So rather than trying to silence those voices, my strategy always is to befriend them. So those voices have wisdom, but they're usually the voice of a scared little kid. And scared little children, here's the problem with scared little children's voices: they don't have wisdom. A little kid cannot have wisdom. But a little kid brings us immediacy. What our inner kids can teach us is to pay attention to what's going on inside. So my visualization would be to picture little Marty, and I put him in the seat next to me, and I'll drive him across that bridge. And I'll show him it's going to be okay.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and if I have to bribe him with ice cream or something, I'll do it.
And
Like that.
don't forget to keep breathing while you're driving.
Exactly.
Don't hold your breath. Breathe.
Hey. Thank you all so much.
Okay.
That's really helpful.
We have a few more minutes. Let's see if we can get it. Go ahead, Leo.
I think in the same we discussed about, Jesus said, I have to go away, but I sent the Spirit. For me, that is similar to what happened to me with that ski teacher. Under his tutelage, you say that? Under his teachings, there are conditions set that made it easy for me to ski. And then after he went away, I mean, I went on my own, I had to realize how much I still had to learn. And I didn't make it a drama. I just said, I acknowledged this teacher is really the thing for me, but I will learn as much as I can. But knowing the slopes like they can, no. That I am happy to learn from that.
Right.
But the teacher have to go away. So to get that faith within yourself.
I had this image, Leo, when you were talking earlier about the teacher is like training wheels on a bicycle.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, we learn how to ride that bike, and we get rid of the training wheels because we've learned, we've internalized.
Very well. Very good idea. Yeah.
And then everything here in this lesson is just to help us understand that the power to do all that is innate. in substance, and that we're all of us living, moving, breathing, having our being in substance. And we cannot not do that. The real question is, can we do it consciously?
Oh, we're learning. We're learning.
Yeah, what a
Take a
concept.
photo.
Martha, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. So it's 9:22, and the question is, do we want to take on a paragraph here, or do we want to just, we could end a little bit early and pick this up next week and do this full section here of 15, 16, 17 through 19.
I like the idea of ending early because we can bask in what we've learned today rather than changing subjects.
Okay. If there's no objection, then we'll just we'll bring it to a little early end. And before we do that, any last minute thoughts? Anybody who hasn't had a chance to share anything that you'd like to say?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Marty, and everybody else, because this is all very enlightening and it helps for discussion of understanding.
Cool.
And I appreciate how much Leo and Janet talked today, because Leo's been quiet for weeks.
Well, Leo helped me a lot. And I hesitate because I just think my questions are just so, I won't say stupid, but I mean, it's just someone that doesn't know a lot of this language and know a lot about all of this. But it turns out I do know it. I just don't know what to name it. And I like the idea that Della had about making this board with the pictures. And I'm going to put a picture of my car in the picture. And yeah.
Yeah, the treasure map is it's really a very specific way of demonstrating how our Trinity works: idea, visualization, manifestation. I mean, it's not the only way, but it's a very practical and pragmatic way that it's not just unity, but many people and organizations that come out of the original New Thought world have picked up on. I think if you see the movie The Secret, to talk about it there. I mean, it's not just in this particular perspective, because it's a universal. It's the way our brains work and our minds work. Okay, well, let's close with our prayer for protection. If everybody would like to join me. The light of God surrounds us.
Surrounds me.
The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are,
God is,
all is well. And just to remind us, if we'd like to remember, review, these lessons are all put on YouTube on our Capital City Unity YouTube channel, and you're always free to go back and refer to any of them. Just sometimes it's good to review. And with that, my friends, God bless, and thank you for being part of my education as a true student. And I look forward to sharing with each other next week.
And Gail,
thank you, Marty.
And Gail, your short hair looks cute.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful. See you guys.
See you.
Bye.